Welcome back to the Scotti-BYTE channel, and this is Scott. Today I want to talk about LXD with Yubico Two Factor Authentication, and specifically LXD virtual machines. So Two Factor Authentication is really critical to protect your access to your various public accounts. However, we talk about self-hosted services here on the channel all the time, and I think it's really critical to have self-hosted services and your self-hosted infrastructure protected as well. So I have a video entitled Self-Hosted Password Management and another entitled How to Use Bitwarden. So overall, the takeaway from this is that you should use a password manager. And I recommend Bitwarden, and Bitwarden is self-hosted. There are other very good tools out there as well, and it's just that I'm a little biased towards Bitwarden because of my experience with it. So this tutorial is not really about Bitwarden per se. It's really about 2FA. And so password managers support long and complex passwords which protect against brute force attacks. So if you're still using that password notebook, it's about time to go out and get yourself a password manager. In fact, I'll tell you that my short passwords are generally about 18 to 20 characters long, and that's because it's a password length limitation of the program I'm using, but more typically my passwords are 35 characters or longer. So adding 2FA means either a TOTP password, that's time-based one-time password, or it means using a hardware security key. So time-based one-time passwords are great, and you can use them via Bitwarden or Google or Microsoft Authenticator, or even getting a time-based one-time password through SMS. But I don't really recommend the SMS ones because it's too easy to be able to spoof phone numbers and that sort of thing. So I look at the SMS TOTP passwords to be less secure. But certainly any TOTP password added to a typical username and password is going to be more secure than just a password by itself. Anyway, hardware security keys like Yubico security keys provide the best possible security. So I have a YubiKey 5C. Actually, I have a couple of Yubico 5Cs, and I have a Yubico YubiKey C NFC. So Yubico has many different models. The ones that are Yubico 5 series just provide the most support and the broadest range of support, but really all of their keys are really pretty good. The 5C keys are generally priced around $50 US, and a YubiKey C NFC that I got I think is down to as little as like $29. So my advice is own more than one and always have a backup, because if you lose your hardware security key, chances are you're going to lose access to the services you've protected it with. So having a backup that you keep in a safe place is always recommended. So this video really is about LXD VMs and the use of a YubiKey with them. So YubiKeys are FIDO keys, FIDO certified keys. FIDO stands for Fast Identity Online, and the FIDO Alliance was founded in February of 2013 to reduce world over-reliance on passwords. And so I wouldn't say passwords are bad per se. I think that short passwords based on English words or variants are bad, and I think passwords that are written down are terrible. So FIDO support exists today in most web browsers, and that's a good thing. There's no software you need to install. They just kind of work out of the box. And FIDO key support is present in Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. And I'll even go as far to say is it's supported in browsers, so it tends to be supported also in Android and iOS as well. So many applications support FIDO keys. Not all applications do, but a great number and a growing number do. And as of March 2019, the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, announced that a standard called WebAuthn is now the official standard for password-free login. So I have covered LXD virtual machines for both Windows 11 and Ubuntu. And did you know that you can support FIDO key logins from LXD virtual machines? And that's really what this video is about. So in my LXD remote management video that I did just recently, we learned that you can be on one system that is a LXD server and point to another system that is a LXD server and execute commands. So in this particular case, I do a LXC console vmsrain :ubuntu-test space -- type equals VGA. Now this particular machine is a LXD VM running the Ubuntu desktop. And so we pop into that. We've got the remote viewer here. If we do an about, that remote viewer is something called the virtual machine viewer, which I've shown on the channel before when we discussed LXD VMs. So I'll do a full screen here, and I'm going to fire up the Brave browser. And in the Brave browser, I'm going to bitwarden.scotti-BYTE.com. And then I'll enter my address, which is going to be my email address for my Bitwarden. I click on continue and I type in my master password. When I hit enter, it brings up this FIDO WebAuthn screen, and it's sitting there scanning and saying, insert your security key and touch it. So the only problem with this is the security key is inserted in the system, but the system is not accessible right now, or the security key is not accessible because it is running remotely. However, if I bump into the top of my screen and say leave screen or leave full screen mode and go over here to file and USB selection, I can select the Yubico YubiKey here, click close, and now the YubiKey is flashing over there in a USB port in my machine. So if I reach over and touch it, it will log in. If I log in for a second time by indicating my email address and then typing in my master password and saying login, again, we get this same prompt here. But if I do a cancel and I click on remember me here and then authenticate, it's flashing the YubiKey once again. If I touch it, it logs back in. But this time, if I log out and I specify my username again, on this particular account for this particular VM, we've set it up so that there's no longer a requirement to use the two-factor authentication key, even though my account is protected otherwise. And now I'm able to sign back in with the username and password. So the reason you might want to do that is because in this particular case, we're connected via the console, but I might have wanted to connect via something like RDP, which might not support my USB keys, depending upon which particular RDP client I would be using. If you like logging into the LXD virtual machine console with the virtual viewer, there's something you can do to be prompted for your 2FA key all the time if you didn't want to set it to where it did not require it. And one thing you can do is you can do an LS USB, and you'll see here that we have information for all of our USB devices. And here you can see that we have a ID for the Yubico key. So if I execute the command LXD config device add, in this case I'm saying for VMS RAIN, although this won't work because VMS RAIN is remote and this flash drive is being plugged in locally. I'd have to go plug the flash drive into the remote system, or not really the flash drive, but actually the Yubico key. And here I just called it flash driver. You can call it whatever you want. I guess more accurately, we might want to call this thing Yubico key or Yubico. We'll see how this looks here in a minute, but basically LXD config device add VMS RAIN :ubuntu-test Yubico. This is just a label. You can make that anything you want. And then the keyword USB, and then the vendor ID being 1050 and the product ID being 0407. And we can see that here in the LSUSB command. So now if I hit enter on that, it says device Yubico added to Ubuntu-test. If I run over here to LXD dashboard and look at VMS RAIN virtual machines and Ubuntu test, I can go under devices and look under USB, and you'll see that I have a USB device over here. Well, hopefully I have one. There we go. A USB device over here called Yubico with vendor 1050 and product code 0407. And so it's not a problem if your LXD virtual machine is running locally, but if it's running remotely like this one is, then this method won't work. However, this should have intrigued you because you can connect any other USB device and have a particular LXD VM point to that device using this exact same technique. So it could be a thumb drive, it could be an external drive, any number of things. To see how this works, I have a LXD virtual machine running on my local system called Win11, and it's a Windows 11 LXD virtual machine. So I can do a LXD config device add Win11 Yubico USB vendor ID equals 1050 and product ID equals 0407. And as you can see, it has added that to that particular LXD virtual machine. So now I've started that LXD virtual machine with the LXD start Win11, and I can connect to its console with the LXD console Win11 space -- type equals VGA. And that will bring up that Windows 11 interface. Let's go ahead and just make that full screen so it looks nice. Click on it and I will type in my password. And then I will start up the Brave browser in Windows. And I'll go ahead and launch my Bitwarden here. Type in my Bitwarden username or my Bitwarden email address. And then type in my master password. And it is coming up asking me to touch my security key. And my security key is in fact flashing. So I reach over and I touch it. And it is logging me in, and sure enough, it does the trick. So this shows you that you can make that command work if it's completely local. In summary, I have covered Windows 11 in a LXD VM in 2 videos. One is entitled Windows 11 LXD Virtual Machine, and the other is entitled More Windows 11 LXD virtual machine. And I've also covered Ubuntu in a LXD VM in a video entitled Ubuntu Lightweight LXD VM, and also another entitled Ubuntu LXD VM Elevated. In this tutorial, I showed how to perform FIDO hardware key authentication in LXD virtual machines using a YubiKey. And FIDO hardware keys, like YubiKeys, provide the highest level of access protection for your infrastructure and services, and I highly recommend that you use one. Anyway, that's it for today. Please subscribe and like to the channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time.